What is up, my dashing dudes? I am the Hans TV, and it's time for your weekly dose of idiocy. So welcome back to r/StoriesAboutKevin. Our first Kevin for the day comes from Zelda's Spell Factory. My brother has a ton of Kevin moments. My brother doesn't follow the way of the Jedi. He follows the way of the Kevin. He is a lot of things, but logical or able to see what will inevitably happen are not things he is. This happened about 40 years ago. When we were 11, me, the sister, and 14, my brother, my parents arranged for us to fly to Florida with my grandparents while my mom put the final touches on her dissertation and defended it. We were going to be on vacation with our extremely loving grandparents. The day before we leave, brother has to cut the lawn. He had done this for several years, so it isn't like he was brand new at it. Something malfunctioned on the mower, the muffler turned red hot, and what did my brother do? My brother decided to take the muffler off and use the mower without it. I know it was a bad idea. He should have known that it wasn't a good idea. Rather than using common sense and asking our dad to help him, he decided to take the muffler off himself, with his bare hand. Because, of course, you don't need an oven mitt or something to protect yourself. His hand sticks to the muffler when he touches it, and he lets out a scream that I only heard when he was back in 3rd grade. That scream always tells me when he has hurt himself badly. Mom, Dad, and I come running out of the house like the hounds of hell on our heels. My dad had to forcefully pull brother's hand off of the muffler. Bits of brother's hand were left on the muffler. Mom got a clean towel and wrapped up his hand. Then Dad took him to the ER while Mom and I worked to get his stuff packed for the trip. My brother had to endure having his hands cleaned up by the doctor at the ER. He had multiple prescriptions that needed to be filled. Mom and I were so happy to see him come back after only a couple of hours. We thought he would be there for most of the night. He only got out so fast because he was bumped up due to the severity of his burn. The next day, the airline balked at letting him get on the plane. As unaccompanied minors, we would be the airline's responsibility. My brother had gotten a note from the ER docs saying that he was quite healthy and able to fly without any problems, so they had to let him fly. The airline took great care of us, including those toy wings, decks of cards with the airline's name on them, meals, a snack to take with us when we had to change planes, and someone to escort us to our connecting flight. It was a good thing we had that escort because we almost missed the connecting flight. My grandparents were there to pick us up when our plane arrived. They were not expecting brother's arm to be in a sling, or to have doctor's recommendations for what he wasn't allowed to do. He couldn't go swimming, or shower without putting his hand into a bread bag and putting a hair tie around it. Luckily, I packed a lot of hair stuff. Grandma and I like to play with our hair. I got the first of many breaks from brother when Grandma packed up a bunch of stuff, got me into the car, and then she took me to the beach. I had a lot of fun, and so did my grandmother. The next day, Grandpa took me shopping, and Grandma did something with brother that wouldn't injure his hand. I got a lot of girly stuff like lip gloss and a new dress and several new books. Then we stopped in at a used bookstore and I got more books. I was and am a total bookworm. A nice one who picked out books her brother would like while I was at the used bookstore. My brother's hand was much improved by the time we flew home, and my mom had her dissertation completed and defended. So now she was mom. PhD. I mean, your brother may be an idiot, but at least you got a good vacation out of it. And congrats to your mother on getting her PhD. Our next Kavina comes from Yowsi Phoenix. Kavina versus quiche. Not my story, but Kavina has told me enough times that it deserves a post here. Teenage Kavina, about 17 at the time, is home alone while Mama Kay is out running errands. Mama Kay is a keen chef, so often leaves recipe lying around for her kids to have a go at. On this particular day, Mama Kay has left a quiche recipe out and asked Kavina to prepare it, ready for her return. Most of it was already done, all she had to do was mix a list of ingredients in a bowl, pour the mixture into an already prepared pastry and throw it in the oven. Pretty simple, right? Wrong. Mere minutes before Mama Kay arrives back home, the oven quite literally explodes. An almighty bang goes off. The glass door is thrown across the kitchen and shatters. The metal frame of the oven itself is misshapen. There is smoke and steam everywhere. Mama Kay walks into the immediate aftermath of this to find Kavina dumbstruck. Neither of them can work out what happened or how a simple and mostly pre-prepared quiche managed to explode the entire oven across the room. Together they read through the recipe to make sure each instruction was carried out properly. and there it is. Add 100 milliliters of whole milk. Kevina couldn't find milk. Kevina found cream and decided it was close enough to milk to act as a good enough substitute. So what else did Kevina find which she deemed a closer match to whole milk than single cream is? Water. She found the tap, she saw the single cream in the fridge and actively decided, "Nah, that won't do. I'll just run it under the tap instead. What could possibly go wrong?" Well, I'll tell you what could possibly go wrong. The tap water could saturate and oversoften the already light pastry, and whilst mixed in with other ingredients, it could start to expand and bubble to the boil, forcing more and more pressure on the quiche, the dish, and the enclosed oven itself, until eventually, bang. Our next post comes from Throwaway Paper Mat. My brother-in-law is a Kevin. First time poster, and let me know if this isn't Kevin enough material. I have to visit with said brother-in-law tonight, so it might help me to buckle in for the ride to get some of this out of my system. Kevin is always going on about a new get-rich-quick scheme. Yeah, this qualifies. Kevin has never become rich so far. Kevin buys into the newest drop shipping. Work from home in your spare time. We do all the work for you, so just make an investment and the money will flow to you. BS pitches. Kevin keeps ending up in more and more debt. Kevin has not connected this correlation in his mind. Kevin will tell you all about how he's going to be a self-made millionaire and what $130,000 car he's looking at buying. One of Kevin's side businesses is a work-from-home debt consolidation business. If he asks me one more time why I don't like his Facebook page or share it, I will harshly point out that if they were any good, he wouldn't still have so much debt and a terrible credit score that no one will finance him a house, even the shady places. Kevin is a know-it-all Kevin that calls people who use CBD useless potheads. You know, CBD that doesn't have any THC because it's not even allowed in this state. This plays into how Kevin is also a social Kevin. Kevin knows last year I was at home with my mom as she died in hospice after a horrible stage 4 fight. She used CBD to help with nephropathy caused by her first round of chemo 5 years previous. She also suffered horribly in the last week before she passed, something I wouldn't wish on anyone. At Thanksgiving this year, the holy grail of socially inept Kevins, he brings up that compassionate release is just suicide by people with no faith in miracles, when miracles happen by the thousand for those in third world countries. My husband graciously swept me out of there at the speed of light before I could r/murdered by words Kevin. Kevin knows everything about Japan and how foreigners are treated like kings there because Kevin has lived in 4 states, in the United States, and has never even had a passport. He loves to bring this up because I'm planning a trip to Japan, and obviously with my friends that live there, he knows more about what I should and shouldn't be planning ahead for. Add the same for any country family members might be visiting. I swear, he just starts making things up on the spot as soon as he hears the name of a place. Why? Why? Who is this ever impressed? Kevin thinks because he has an office desk in his apartment and runs a business from his home, he can claim the entirety of his rent as a business expense and write it off. I can't wait to hear about him getting audited, and how he's more right than the IRS and should have all their jobs. Kevin was done a blessing and got a real job where my husband works. Thankfully not in the same building or department. I ran into the girl in the desk beside him at the Christmas party, and he talks to her non-stop, even while she's on the phone with customers. Send me the strength to make it through tonight. Well, I'm about 3 days late to this, but I hope it went well. Good luck, OP. Good luck. This next post comes from Twisted1120. My boss, Kevin. Unfortunately, I still have to work with this guy. I've been in my current position a little over a year and a half, and the Kevin has been here somewhere around 6. He only got to be the supervisor because he was in my position when the previous supervisor retired, and this role is the next in line for his current job. We work in a warehouse, just the 2 of us, for a facility that houses MR/MH patients, most of which are elderly and require extensive care. I noticed pretty quickly after taking the position that the inventory counts were off. Way off. Now in most places inventory counts can be off an item or 2, it happens. Mistakes are made and fixed, no big issue. But we're talking counts off by hundreds of items. My first inkling he was a Kevin came about when the first shipment I had to enter into the system. We had ordered 48 cases of an item, received 48 cases of said item, and I entered 48 cases into the computer. He keeps inventory counts on index card with each item, to help him keep track of stuff. He wrote down 50 cases received on his card. Then there was the damaged bag of rice. The forklift had accidentally tore the bag that had partially fallen through the pallet. No big deal, clean up the mess, throw it away, and mark it out of inventory. Unless you're Kevin. He was determined that we were duct taping that bag up and sending it out to our dietary department without telling them what had happened to it, so they could make the call about throwing it away. He got really upset when I told him no, and I refused to do that. Every week we send supplies to the buildings for cleaning and care. He kept cutting the number of continence supplies, sometimes in half. So if a building ordered 20 cases, he'd send 10. He couldn't understand why they were calling every Friday, asking for us to send extras. He actually asked me once if I thought the staff was stealing briefs and pull-ups because he just refused to believe they were ordering supplies they actually needed. He bought himself a new SUV last winter. It came with a factory remote starter. I showed him how to use it 3 times. It's one button on the fob, before I finally told him I didn't have a car that new and I didn't know how it works. He believed me. Maintenance was flushing the water lines a while back, so we didn't have any water pressure for a couple of hours. He commented on them flushing the hydrant across the road from our building, then went to use the restroom. He came back out and submitted a work order because the toilet wouldn't flush. He almost hit our safety manager with the forklift this week because he didn't look before he started moving backwards. In his defense, I did tell the safety manager not to walk anywhere near the forklift because Kevin isn't at all saved. He is constantly accepting in damaged food items because he is too busy trying to talk to the truck driver to look at what is being brought in. Then, when he later realizes the stuff is damaged, instead of letting our purchasing agent know, he sets aside to send it to dietary so they can deal with it. By the time it gets to them, it is usually way too late to claim it as damage to the shipping company. He also apparently doesn't know the difference between applesauce and apple slices. He sent 14 cases of sliced apples to dietary over the course of 6 weeks because they kept ordering applesauce and he can't read. I know there were a lot more Kevin moments from last year. I'm just having trouble remembering them right now. This man shouldn't have even made it from being a minimum wage worker. How the hell is he a supervisor? Anyway, our final post for the day comes from You Go First. Kevin demonstrates Newton's first law of physics. When this occurred, Kevin lived in a condo complex. Residents of the complex were assigned 1 parking spot, 1 per address, that was covered by a freestanding awning. They were also allowed to park 1 additional vehicle in the uncovered parking area. Most of the time, Kevin's wife used the covered parking spot and Kevin parked his truck in an uncovered spot. However, on this day, Kevin's wife and their child are out of state visiting Kevin's mother-in-law. As a result, Kevin has opted to move her minivan to an uncovered spot and park his truck in their covered spot. Kevin has asked me to go with him to shop for a new car stereo and was waiting outside when I arrived. We got into his truck and after he started it and put it into reverse, I suggested he close the door. He looked at me grinning and said, "Watch this." I think he tried to wink, but he did so with both eyes, so it looked more like a nervous twitch. Kevin popped the clutch and the truck lurched backwards. The still open driver door caught the support of the covered parking and bent forward. Kevin later explained that he had previously done this maneuver when parked in one of the uncovered spots. He would back up, then put the truck in first, and the inertia would cause his door to close. Well, his door wouldn't close now. We couldn't get it anywhere close to closing. He'd almost ripped his armrest off trying to pull it closed while I pushed from the outside. A comment on the original post sums this up correctly. When a Kevin says, "Watch this," all you can really do is prepare the shocked Pikachu. Well, alright my dashing dudes. That is going to do it for today's episode of r/StoriesAboutKevin. I hope you liked the stories, and if you did, I'll link them down in the description as always. And if you liked the video, subscribe, share, drop a like, and a comment down below with what you'd like to see me read next. A humongous thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons. I couldn't do what I do without you, and it makes me so happy to know that I'm putting out content that you like. Also, big announcement. We have a subreddit now. I'll link it down in the comments. But with that being said, I will see you in the next video.